soon as POE 1 comes out, like, you know, the expansion, immediately we're going to start doing patches for POE 2, like even mid-league for some of that balance stuff. Because in POE 1, the expectation was like every skill can be your primary skill. With the comboing stuff, I feel like we actually lost sight of that a bit too much. This is something we really want to fix. Like definitely like during 020, like after POE 1's out, we're going to be doing some of this.
That's right, guys. Jonathan, in his last podcast with Talkative Try, did mention that they were definitely going to be implementing mid-season buffs to skills specifically around combo skills to make more skills and builds viable. And he said that immediately after POE 1 is released, they will start working on it. At this point, we are about a month and a half away from the new POE 2 season, and I would expect that within the next 2 weeks or so, we'll probably see this buff that they talked about in that podcast. So today, I'm going to be talking about what skills that I think or want them to buff in the next upcoming balance patch. Now, how we're going to do this is we're going to do 2 skills from every single weapon class that I think deserve a buff or I want them to buff, starting with maces. So the first skill that I think will be buffed for maces has to be Earth Shatter. This is sadly just a very, very underwhelming skill, has a very small AoE, and it requires you to use a war cry to blow up the Earth Shatter spike to deal more damage to surrounding enemies. A very clunky combo skill. Sadly, there's just a lot of better options for warriors right now, so it ends up being that on top of having a very, very clunky activation cost, it also doesn't do that much. So I would either like to see them make it so that it does more with the activation. Let's just say with the combo, you're going to throw out the Earth Shatter, Earth Spike, and then what will happen is there's a big AoE, and that AoE can chain between enemies or something like that. But right now, the cost of just throwing it out, having a war cry, just doesn't give you enough reward. So I'd like to see them improve that in that direction, because I do think that the combo part is interesting, but it just isn't worth it for people to use at the moment. Now, overall though, I would say the Mace skills are pretty solid. Most of them are either usable during, let's say, campaign, or even further after that. Then you could boost them using heralds, make them do more AoE. Things like that will boost the abilities of them. But Earth Shadow is definitely the one that I would say probably not going to be able to be just boosted by other endgame skills. Now, as I mentioned, the other skills are pretty good, so I did not really have a second one for this that I think needs to be buffed, but if you ask me what I want to get buffed, it has to be Resonating Shield, and just in general, the shield gameplay. It feels very, very clunky right now, and while the shield charge builds are actually quite strong, it just doesn't end up being a very comfortable playstyle. Now, if they could change that and make Resonating Shield a much stronger ability for this shield playstyle, that would be really, really nice. At the moment, it does serve its purpose of breaking armor, but beyond that, damage-wise, it just doesn't do much. So I'd love to see them make this skill a more viable damage option for people who want to play that shield playstyle. Now, that's it for maces. Next has to be the bow skills. The first one, and the one that I want them to buff the most for bows, has to be Rain of Arrows. Unfortunately, as it stands, Rain of Arrows just cannot be a standalone ability. It just doesn't do enough damage because of the way it operates. You shoot the Rain of Arrows up into the air, it does about 30 to 39 arrows, right? But it comes down over time. And it has a scaling mechanism where if you fire Rain of Arrows with frenzy charges, it'll increase the amount of arrows you shoot by 100% more per frenzy charge consumed. Now, you can get up to quite a bit of frenzy charges, so in theory, that sounds pretty strong, right? But unfortunately, that's not the case, because despite firing more arrows, it doesn't all come down at the same time. It just increases the duration of the Rain of Arrows and doesn't actually increase the damage over time, like the DPS of it. So I would really like to see it so that they make the Rain of Arrows, even if you have more arrows coming down with the extra frenzy charges, it doesn't increase the duration. It just increases the rate at which the arrows come down and the number of arrows that come down at once. Because it is definitely my favorite skill for bow classes in every single game. I'd love to see them buff them that way. Now, for Shock Chain Arrow, this in reality is just a weaker lightning spear. This makes it so that enemies who are inflicted by lightning ailments like shock and electrocuted will have this arrow bounce between the enemies and then also release a damaging shockwave. Unfortunately, this really is just a power crept lightning spear. So either A, kind of bring it up to where lightning spear is, though lightning spear will probably get nerfed in point 3. Either A, bring it up a little bit more to kind of match it so it doesn't have that weird ailments situation going on, or B, maybe even just consider getting rid of the skill completely. Spears. We all know that spears are the meta right now in Path of Exile 2, especially with lightning spear and all that. So it actually was pretty hard for me to find like multiple skills to say, these are too weak. But really, the first one, Spear of Solaris, to me is probably the main target for a buff. Because right now, it is basically unusable. It basically requires an enemy to be heavy stunned completely and have them not move even beyond the heavy stun period for this to actually deal any form of damage. I would really like them to get rid of the glory part and maybe make it so that it's kind of like a homing beam of sorts, so you can actually use it for clear and things like that. Because right now, it just doesn't work. It is not very good. I'd like to see them make it more into a mapping and AoE ability that I can use while mapping. But we'll see how that happens, because the skill animation is so nice looking that it is a complete shame that they didn't capitalize on the skill and make it better. It was definitely my most looked forward to skill when I first saw it, but unfortunately, it completely fell flat in its execution. Now, the next one is Fangs of Frost. Now, this one is a melee ability that relies on you consuming the parry debuff of an enemy to create a Nova of Frost. And who the heck is parrying in the middle of a map? Nobody. Just get rid of that. Make it so that it's just a standalone skill that maybe it's like when you chill an enemy or freeze an enemy, you can consume that to deal an extra Nova or something like that. Kind of like a pseudo Herald of Ice in a way. That's probably where I would head with this skill and make it a little bit better. Now, next up is going to be spells. So spells wise, I'm not going to be talking about elemental spells and, occult spells or whatever, just spells in general. And the one that I definitely think deserves a buff is Hex Blast. Oh my gosh, how they completely destroyed the skill between Season 1 and Season 2 of Path of Exile 2. It's just not used. It's not useful. It's a dead skill right now. I really hope that they bring the skill back up because it was a fun skill. I think what we need to do is just revert it back to its 0.1 state. I don't think it was even OP back in 0.1. I have no clue why they changed it. Now, maybe it's because it's barrageable or something like that. I have no clue. But either way, just revert it back to its 0.1 status because right now it is completely useless. Now, for Firestorm, this is an interesting one because there's also the Ice Storm or the Blizzard that came with a new unique item, and they did change the skill. But I still think overall, it's just a little bit too... It kind of has the same problems as like Rain of Arrows, where it's just a damage over time ability where the skill just comes out a little bit too slow. So I would really like to see them change Firestorm and make it so that it just does a little bit more damage and a lot quicker. Have the meteors, the little fire bolts come down faster, and as a result, it'll do more damage overall and be a much more comfortable skill to use. Now for the Quarterstaffs, the first one I think that should get a buff is definitely Falling Thunder. This is just basically Stormwave, but has a condition. Well, I mean, it's a little bit of an overstatement. I do think that Falling Thunder, when powered by power charges, is stronger than Stormwave, but in reality, most people aren't going to be generating those power charges, and for the effect that you get for generating the power charges, it just isn't enough. I would like to see the effect of Falling Thunder be kind of base without power charges, like the power charge effect is base, but then with power charges, it just gets stronger, or maybe there's more projectiles or something like that. Because right now, without power charges, Falling Thunder is pretty much completely useless, and it's only something that you see being used during the campaign. I would love to see the skill be used in maps because it's definitely a very, very nice looking and pretty skill. The next one is Glacial Cascade, another one of those skills that I think has some use during the beginning of the campaign because it's like a level 1 skill, so you can kind of use it from the beginning, but beyond the first couple areas, it just isn't useful. The amount of damage you deal outside of the tip of the skill just doesn't do enough. So you're basically never going to be in a situation where you're actually going to be able to maximize the amount of damage on Glacial Cascade. So it's another Quarterstaff skill that I think needs buffs. Overall, I think Quarterstaff right now is just in a pretty bad place for leveling. Mapping, it's okay. I think Flicker Strike, Storm Wave, those are pretty good to use. But things like Ice Strike, things like Glacial Cascade, a lot of the leveling stuff, I think really needs to be taken a look at. So a lot of the leveling skills, the level 1 to 3 skills, take a look at those, buff those, and make them a little bit better for people who want to level with them. Those are the main ones that I want to get buffed. But wait, we still have the minions and we also have crossbows. And all I can say to these is that minions need a buff across the board. Every single minion right now is unfortunately not great. And it just sucks because there is pretty much no minion build that is good at clearing big mobs. And that's basically all what Path of Exile is about. So I really think that minions need to be brought back to at least 0.1 levels to be at least viable in the current state of the game. And with crossbows, pretty much Galvanic Shards is the only ability that is actually decent to use as a crossbow player. And I personally think that the crossbow archetype just has problems. Now, I'm not saying that you can't use other skills. You definitely can. There's ones that are used. Grenades are also used, but they're never going to be anywhere close to meta just because of their reloading mechanic. I really think that the reload mechanic is cool, but definitely needs to be taken a look at and changed somehow. Maybe it's more things like the new crossbow that we got that made it so that you don't have to reload, but it costs something. Something like that to make it so that we get a much more consistent and quick map clear, because none of the other skills have this forced mandatory kind of stall with their skills. And the reason why Galvanic Shards actually works compared to the other ones is because it has a fairly large clip, and also it's a fast shooting, big AoE skill. So the other ones just, I think, either A, make it so that the clip is larger and the reload is faster, or B, just have to rethink about how the reloading mechanic even works. And grenades, they have a cooldown. Get rid of that cooldown. It doesn't need the cooldown. I don't think grenades are like strong enough to require that significant of a cooldown for the skills. But yeah, those are the skills that I think need a buff for this upcoming patch. Of course, there's plenty of other skills that I think also need buffs, but these are the top 2 skills for every single class and every single weapon that I think need to get improved. Let me know down in the comment section below what you want to get buffed, or whether or not you think that the skills that I hit were spot on, or I'm missing other ones. But as always, if you enjoyed this video, please, the best way to support the channel is by hitting the sub button. It supports me for completely free, and it also lets me know that you enjoy the content that I'm making. And I stream every single night on twitch.tv/musicshiro, so I'd love to see you guys there. But if not, hopefully I'll see y'all in the next video. All right, guys. Peace.